Alrighty, hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Cryptic Coil, and in today's video, I am going to, it's kind of a remake slash update video. A couple years back, I made a video showcasing my entire point horror collection. And I actually got the idea to do an update from Shady Side Library because Shady Side Library has watched my channel for a very long time, as I've watched his channel for a very long time. And he actually suggested that I do an update on my Fear Street collection because I completed a number of series within the Fear Street collection. So I don't know if I feel ready to do that particular video yet, but I did get the idea from him. I decided instead to make an update on my point horror collection, except I'm going to change it up this time, and I'm not just going to do point horror, I'm going to do point fiction, okay? Or anything that came out around that time, and it doesn't say point, it just says Scholastic because it could have totally fit in with the point horror series or the point fiction series. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and just jump into this video, and I'm going to start with my non-point horror, non-point thriller stuff. Just stuff that was, published and printed by Point or Scholastic, and I'm just going to hop into that. All right, so I'm going to grab this handful of books over here first thing. All right, so the first book I want to show you is a historical fiction book printed by Point, and it's called Lisa's War. And this is, like I said, I mean, it's historical fiction. There are moments that might be a tad bit, scary because, someone went through something crazy in the past that most of us couldn't relate to today. The tagline on the front reads, "Someone's got to try and make a difference." And the author of this book is Carol Matas. I think that's how you pronounce it. And I just want to see, this book was printed, or it was copyrighted in 1987, but apparently it was printed by Scholastic in 1991. So this is a cool one here. This book does have something to do with World War II, escaping and fighting the Nazis. I guess it takes place in Denmark. I haven't read it, but it does sound good. All right, the next book that I have that I'd like to show you is in the same vein, except it's called Escape from Warsaw. And it says Scholastic on the bottom here, but on the side it says Point Fiction. And it's the same thing. It's a historical fiction book about fighting and escaping the Nazis, but this one is called Escape from Warsaw. The author is, and oh my gosh, I'm going to have a hard time with this dude's last name, Ian Saraye. Yeah, so this one was printed in, I don't see a copyright date. This is wild. No copyright date? Interesting. Is there anything on the back? Anything on the front? I have no idea what year this was published, but anyway, it's cool to have in my collection. All right. The next one that I want to show you is this book right here. And I think that this one might be horror adjacent. It's called Born into the Light, or Born into Light, by Paul Samuel Jacobs. And I think it's horror adjacent. I don't think it's a true point horror book. I think that it's more sci-fi fantasy with some leanings and minor inclusions of horror. And the tagline on the front reads, "A gift from the sky." I actually have two copies of this book. Both of them are in like mint condition. And this one was copyrighted in 1988. But this is a cool one. Okay, the next one that I want to show you, and it's not horror. It's actually about Greek mythology, and it's called Gods, Demigods, and Demons, an Encyclopedia of Greek Mythology. And it looks like it was, I don't know, written or compiled by this Bernard Evzelin character person. And this book is in mint condition, and it's a point nonfiction book, so and it's got the Scholastic logo on it as well. This book is in mint condition, never been read. The cover is and pages are offering resistance as I peek inside. And this book is from 1975. Wow. I don't know if this is a true 1975 printing or if that's just the only copyright date that they published on the copyright page. But if it was from 1975, this book is in the same condition that it was in when it was printed in 1975. So that's pretty cool. All right, this looks like a fun one. All right, and it's by an author named Susan Smith, and the title is Changing Places, and the tagline on the front reads, "Some wishes shouldn't come true." And you have a boy who is in a girl's bedroom, awkwardly holding up a pair of her high heels, and this is basically a freak retelling of Freaky Friday. It's kind of the same premise, but it's non-horror. It's just kind of fun. This book is in a pretty good condition as well. I would say near mint, never been read. The cover and the pages offer resistance. And this is a birthday shelf book. The copyright date was 1986. And this does seem like a fun one. I said near mint condition, but someone wrote their name, and I guess their name is Bueller, oddly enough, on the cover. I'm sure some alcohol, some 70% isopropyl alcohol will remove this Sharpie. I just haven't tried it yet. I would like to find another copy of this book that's like, beat ups, because this is to me good enough to be considered collectors in collector's condition. So I'd like to find a beat up copy for reading purposes. All right. Another one that's a historical fiction that was published by Point, and this is a Point fiction. The author is Scott Odell, and the title is Sarah Bishop. Oh, this is the author of Island of the Blue Dolphins. Okay, I read that one in fourth grade. Okay. And this is about a girl who lost her family during the Revolutionary War. I haven't read it, but I've read the synopsis on the back of the cover. But it does sound really good. And I bought this book. I picked it up from a thrift store. I picked it up at a time when I was really only interested in horror. But when I saw the Point logo, I grabbed it to see if it was going to be a Point horror. And it wasn't, but it sounded interesting. So I went ahead and just picked it up for less than $2, and I'm really glad I did. All right. Then I have this one called The President's Daughter, and this is another Point Scholastic young adult fiction. And in the 90s, they made a movie with comedian Sinbad called First Kid, and it was about the president's teenage son. And this sounds like the same premise, except it's about the president's daughter, hence the title. And the author is Ellen Emerson White. And the copyright date on it is, just for fun, 1984. So this book is older than me. And it's aged fairly well. It's not in the best condition. It's not in the worst condition. I suspect it has been read. The first half of the book is very loose. The second half of the book offers resistance when I try to open the pages and the cover. So not bad. This is still a collectible in my according to my standards. Here's another one that definitely, this does not count as point horror, but it was printed by Scholastic, and I guess the author Eric P. Kelly is a Newbery Medal winner. and it's called The Trumpeter of Krakow. Krakow. I have no idea how to pronounce that. And this is historical fiction, but it's also fantasy, and it's got some leanings towards horror. I had never heard of this one, but I found it at a thrift store. I just decided to pick it up and, add it to my collection, even though I have no intention of reading this one. And it's in mint condition. And then, like a couple months later, I found another copy that was a little bit more beat up. And so that one is actually what I would consider to be a reader's copy. So if I ever do get a hankering to read it, I have a reading copy, which is awesome. All right. Here's another one, and I see this book at thrift stores from time to time. Maybe like once a year, I'll find another copy at a thrift store, and this is the best ghost stories ever, edited by Christopher Croviton, and it's not. It doesn't say point anywhere, but it was printed by Scholastic. It is ghost stories, so I keep it on the same shelf with all my other point horror books for that reason. This was actually copyrighted in 2003. So if it had been printed sometime in the late 80s, early 90s, I think it would have been considered a point horror book. Then I have, let's see, I think I'm running out of the non-horror books published by Point, so I can start getting into point horror fairly shortly. I have this one, and I'm not sure if it's truly a point horror book. I have a couple of copies of it. I find one of these for sale at the thrift stores maybe once every other year. So I think it's a little bit more rare, but not like super rare. The author is Catherine Lasky, and the title is Beyond the Burning Time. And it's a historical fiction novel, and it does sound horrifying to me because it's about girls being accused of witchcraft during the Salem witch trials. I haven't read it, but it does sound really, really good. And I think that one of the reasons that makes it sound so good is that it sounds like it could be historical nonfiction, even though I think it is fiction. And the copyright date on this one is 1994, and I actually do have a backup copy. This one is in near mint condition, but I have one that's a little bit more beat up. So again, I have a reading copy, which is awesome. Then I'm gonna, I guess, get into the horror stuff right after I show off this one. So I have two books by Arthur Roth. The first one is called The Iceberg Hermit, and this sounds more like a kind of a survival story fantasy genre, I guess. And I do think it takes place somewhere back in time. Yeah, it does take place. It is historical fiction because the main character is on a whaling ship and gets stranded in like Antarctica and has to survive. And the author is Arthur Roth. Now, I'm not particularly into this genre. The only thing that I've ever read in this vein would be Gary Paulson's Hatchet. I read that one in elementary school because it was required reading in my class, and I enjoyed the story, but that's not something that I gravitate towards if left to my own devices. But it's, cool that I have this. It's in mint condition. Let me check the copyright date on this. 1974, so that's pretty cool. And from the same author, I have another book called Avalanche. And this one, I believe, is considered a point horror. And it's about a guy who goes skiing with some friends, and he causes an avalanche, and he has to survive that. So this one leans more into the horror genre than the Iceberg Hermit does, but essentially it's a very similar story. And just out of curiosity, the copyright date on this one is 1979. So, and I believe that point horror series. According to what I learned from Cameron Chaney's channel, if I remember what he said correctly. If not, that's on me. I think that point horror, really began in 1982, but officially began in 1992 when they started to retroactively reprint, or well, they started to reprint older books under the point thriller, point horror series, and I believe this is one of those such books. All right, so now we can get into my horror books. So, or point horror books. So I'm gonna start off by showing you books that I only have one book from this said author, and then I'll show you my R.L. Steins in one sitting, and then my Carol Ellis's and Caroline B. Cooney's, etc. If I have more than one title from the same author, but for right now, I only have one title from this author, and that is Gillian Cross, and the book is called Wolf. And this is an animal attack story. It's basically a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. And this has one of the coolest covers in the point horror series. I absolutely love it. So that's really cool. I've actually found 3 copies of this since I began collecting point horrors. And I started collecting point horrors about 3 years ago when the Fear Street movies came out. It made me want to complete my Fear Street collection, and then that led me to channels like Slime and Slashers and Cameron Chaney, and then it made me start chasing point horrors. And I did remember a few point horror books from my youth that were sold at the Scholastic Book Fair, but when I was a kid, I mostly stuck to R.L. Stein and Christopher Pike. I did read a little bit of Caroline B. Cooney as a kid too, as well. Anyway, Wolf by Gillian Cross. It was copyrighted in 1990. Then I have this one by Patricia Windsor called The Christmas Killer. And this one is not my collector's copy because it has a little bit of a tear in the back. I actually have one that's in mint condition, and it's probably somewhere around here. But this is going to be my reading copy. I attempted to read it not last winter, but the winter before, coming up towards Christmas. But every time I sat down to read this book, and that was my one goal for the month, I wanted to read this specific book. Every single time the universe conspired against me and interrupted me right as I started reading. It was really obnoxious. But maybe this is the year that I can finally get to reading this one, because I heard good things about this book. Everyone that I've heard talk about it who's read it, they absolutely loved it. So I really hope I get to read it this winter. All right. Let's see. Then I have this one by Penny Matthews, and it's in mint condition. And it's a collection of stories. It's 10 horror stories compiled by Penny Matthews. And it's got a really cool, cheesy, late 80s, early 90s cover. I absolutely love that. Again, it's called Hair Raising, and I believe this is the only title that I have from Penny Matthews, whether it was compiled by or written by. So that's pretty cool. Then I'm very glad to have this. This is a recent acquisition. October Moon by Michael Scott. I found out about this video, or I found out about this title from Cameron Chaney's channel, and I just love the cover on it. And when I saw that he had it, I'd never seen it before, didn't recognize it, but I loved the cover and I was jealous, and I knew I had to have it, and now I finally do. So that's really awesome. Then I have this book, Ghost Host by Marilyn Singer. And this was a point horror book. And I like the cover on it because one of my favorite movies as a child was Disney's Peter Pan. I still love Peter Pan to this day. And I think that the ghost girl on the cover has some Wendy Moira Angela Darling vibes. And I guess the young man can be Peter Pan if he wants. But this is a cool one. I do have a backup copy of this, which is cool. I haven't read it, but this was copyrighted in 1987, and I'm I think this is a first printing actually. I could be wrong, but I think it is, and it's in near mint condition. I would say it's definitely in collectability condition. Then I have this book called Night Terrors, and it's a collection of stories by Jim Murphy. And as far as I know, this is Jim Murphy's only point horror book, and I don't have anything else, any other titles from this author. But this is another one that was like early in the mid 90s. Great cover with some kind of beasts, some kind of human and some kind of beast footprints in the snow in a graveyard. Just excellent looking cover. Then I have this one, which I had never heard of, and I actually got this from Shadyside Library. He and I have sent each other books in the past. There are videos on my channel and on his channel where we did that. Then one time I got on eBay and I purchased a lot of point horror books, and ironically, coincidentally enough, the seller happened to be Shadyside Library, and I was oblivious until I received the package. When I opened the package, he had left me a note, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what are the odds?" But this is one of the ones that I got in that purchase from him, and it's called Hear No Evil, Death in the Afternoon, a Sarah Howell mystery. So I guess this is a book in a series. The author is Kate Chester. Oh, so this is book number 1 in the series. I didn't realize that, but it's really cool that I have it. It's got a good looking cover. I like the girl with the blank expression. It's blank, but there's also something kind of unsettling about that expression on her face. It only shows half her face, which conveys mystery, and you have a car crashing off a bridge. It's a pretty compelling cover. All right, and then I have this one called Speeding Bullet by Neil Schusterman. And I have another title from this author, but not in the point horror series. He wrote kind of I guess, a series for kids that was competitive with Goosebumps. I don't want to call it a Goosebumps knockoff, but I think it was called Mind Warps or Mind Warped or Mind Warpers, so something in that vein. And I have one book from that series as well. And this one is called Speeding Bullet. And it sounds really good. It sounds like a very action-packed horror story. And this is from 1991. So that's cool. Then, where is it? Where is it? I have, I'm not sure where it's at right now. Is it somewhere in here? Nope, it's not. Okay. Well, I'll just keep the show going. Okay, so I have this book called Lure of the Dark by Sarah Sargent, and it seems to me like it's a werewolf story. I haven't read it, but I found a very, very beat up copy at a thrift store, and it was, published by Point, and it sounds like it's a werewolf story. Like a girl falls in love with someone who's a werewolf. It sounds like it's that kind of a story. Just based on the synopsis. But this was not originally published by Point. It was one of those earlier books. What year was this published? It was published in, sorry, 1984, and then it was republished and printed by Point. And so I don't know if it's kind of like a horror slash romance type of story or not, because I haven't read it, but I do have the really beat up Point copy, and then I have this hardback copy with a dust jacket. So this is if I read the beat up one, it's going to fall apart on me. So when I do get around to reading it, this is the copy that I'll be reading. All right. Next, I'm going to get into some books where I might only have two or three different titles from the same author. So perhaps my favorite author of all time is Christopher Pike. And as far as I know, he's only written two titles for the Point Horror series, and that's Weekend and Slumber Party. So I have this copy of Slumber Party. I think it might be a first printing, if I remember correctly. I think it is. And it's from the 80s, I believe. Is it not? Yes, it's from 1985, so it's actually older than me. So that's really cool. Then I have two different editions of Weekend. So I have the original Point Horror printing, and it's from 1986. So this is a birthday shelf book for me. It was published the year that I was born, which is cool, and it's got the Point Fiction logo on the spine. Then I have a reprinting of it when from Scholastic. So, and it doesn't have the Point logo on the spine. This one's like in mint condition, and this one's a little old, a little bit aged, but still in very very close to near mint condition. So they're both very collectible copies for me. So then I have two books from this author, or two titles from this author, Jane McFan. I have Be Mine, which I guess is kind of a, I don't know if it's a Valentine's Day slasher. Does it have anything to do with Valentine's Day? No, it has something to do with a deadly secret admirer. It's called Be Mine, and it's just got a terrific looking cover on it. And I actually have two copies of this. They're both in pretty good condition. I don't know if one of them is beat up enough for me to consider it a reading copy or not. So I haven't read this title, but I really want to. It's just got such a great cover. It says "Be Mine" with like blood drip, and there's a sharp kitchen knife sticking into one of the chocolates in a heart-shaped box of chocolates, and I don't know if that's blood dripping off the knife or if that's blood coming out of the chocolate, but ooh, it looks eerie and sinister and so good. Then I have another title from this author, Jane McFan, Hide and Seek. And again, I believe I have two copies of it, but they're both in like mint condition. So I need to find beat up copies. I don't have the heart to ruin these. But this one sounds really good. And I actually, I read the synopsis on the back. It sounds good, but I'm gonna keep it moving. Okay, then I have two titles from this author, Barbara Steiner, and I own another Barbara Steiner book, but it was more for like children. I think it was published by Minstrel Publishing, and I think it's some got it. I featured it in one of my recent book hauls, but it's not a point horror book. But Barbara Steiner has written quite a few titles for children and young adults. This one is called The Phantom, and it sounds really cool because it's a story about football and a ghost and everything. So it just looks good, and I love the helmet on this guy. Like his face just looks really scary, and the protective face mask on his football helmet, it looks like sharp beast like teeth, and this just looks really really good. This is my collector's copy. I have a reading copy, and I really want to get to reading this title soon. All right, then I have one more from Barbara Steiner, and it's called Spring Break. And I have I have a copy of one of the Fear Street kind of knockoff books, not Horror High. Terror Academy. That's also called Spring Break. But this sounds really good. It's kind of like a weekend getaway slasher. It sounds good. I haven't read it, but I really want to. All right. Then I have two titles from this art author, Robert Westall, and this is my collector's copy, Ghost Abbey, okay, by Robert Westall. Beautiful artwork on the cover. I love it. I love the font of the title. I love the colors. Beautiful title. It's a haunted house story. This is my collector's copy. I have a reading copy where the back of the cover is a little bit torn right here near the edge of the spine, along the corner edge of the spine. I'm going to fix it with like packing tape. It would otherwise be in mint condition if it wasn't for that tear. But since this one's in mint condition, this is my collector's copy. All right, then I'm so glad to finally have this. I've been wanting this title. I've been wanting to obtain this title for a very long time. It's called The Promise, and also by Robert Westall. And it just looks good. Another great looking cover where I love the font and the colors and the imagery on the cover. The tagline on the front reads, "Cross your heart, hope to die." And this one has clearly been read before, but it's still in good enough condition for me to consider it collectible condition. No creases on the spine. Just a little bit of wear and tear. Not tear, just a little bit of wear on the front cover, but very awesome. I'm so glad to finally have that in my collection. Then I have four titles from Richie Tankersley Cusick within the Point Horror series. I have Teacher's Pet, and oh wow, this is in better condition than I realized it was in. Okay, so I have Teacher's Pet, and this is a really cool looking cover. It's got the Point Fiction logo on the spine. This is from, let's see, 1990, the year 1990. And according to this, according to the like bibliography page, other Point paperbacks by Richie Tankersley Cusick, it looks like I have them all. I'm not so sure about that, but I have this copy of Trick or Treat, which is in actually pretty good condition. The only problem is a little bit of tear here, but I think this is my only copy, so technically it's my collector's copy. Some girl wrote her name in on the first page of the book, and this one is from 1989, so I'm guessing Teacher's Pet, my copy of Teacher's Pet must be not be a first edition. Then I have this book, The Lifeguard by Richie Tankersley Cusick, and this is in like near mint condition. And this is one of the first Point horror books that I found when I began my journey collecting Point horror books. I found it at a local Goodwill, and I went in there like hunting for vintage young adult or vintage middle grade horror books. In the aftermath of the Fear Street trilogy being released on Netflix 3 years ago. And I'd already seen one of Cameron Chaney's videos about the Point horror series. And I went to that one Goodwill, and they had this title, and I just snagged it. And I think that this was the first Point horror book that I ever collected. And it sounds really, really good. I've heard good things about it too. I think that most people like it. Some boy had to write his name onside the inner front cover in pen, nevertheless. This title is from 1988. All right, and then I have one more from Richie Tankersley Cusick, and just out of curiosity, I want to go back to The Lifeguard, and I want to look at the bibliography page. I don't see any evidence that, aside from these four titles, that Richie Tinkersley Cusick wrote any more books for the Point Horror series. But this one is called April Fools, and it's not bad. It's not bad. I'm content with saving this as my collector's copy, but if I find one that's in like closer to near mint condition, I wouldn't have any problem with this being my reading copy either. So April Fool's terrific looking cover. I mean, just very compelling, enchanting, enthralling, enticing. All those synonyms, all of them. And this one is also from 1990. Wow, Richie Tinkersley Cusick put out multiple titles in 1990. She had a big year. Oh, while I'm at it, I have these modern day, what I call point horror books, and because they were published by Point, you see it on the spine. This one is called The Dead Girls of Hysteria Hall, and it looks really good. It sounds really good. Just the other day, I was at a thrift store and I found another copy in paperback, and it said not for sale, unedited manuscript, and I ended up opting not to buy it, and I'm kicking myself because I wish I would have bought it now. And I thought about it, and then a couple days later I went back, and of course it was gone. But I have this hardback with a dust jacket, and the reason why, so this is from the year 2015. So I mean, it's definitely not one that myself and most of my audience grew up with, but it is a horror book, and it was published by Point. And this story has been told a number of times. It's about, like, an all girls boarding school or something like that. There was a low budget horror movie called Five Girls. There was, if you remember The Craft, that movie from the 90s, there was kind of a knockoff called Little Witches with the similar storyline. So this story has been told before, but it does sound really good and really sounds worth reading. All right, then I have this one, and it's also published by Point, and it's also a lot more modern than what we're used to when we think of the Point horror series. But this one is called The Dead and Buried by Kim Harrington. And I think it's more of a murder mystery, but it's also got horror and romance in it. And this title is from the year, let's see, 2013, and this is a first edition. So very cool. Very proud to have this one in my collection as well. All right. Now, let's go ahead and ooh, okay, I'm gonna have to do some organizing here in a little bit. Let's just jump into my R.L. Steins. Oh, actually, before I jump into the R.L. Steins, I have one more title from a certain author, where this is the only title from the author that I have, not only in the Point Horror series, but period. This one is a very rare book. It's called Anna to the Infinite Power, by Mildred Ames, and I really like it. It gives me some like Nightmare on Elm Street vibes, because I think that the girl on the cover looks like Nancy Thompson from the first and third Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And I think Freddy's or Wes Craven's Final Nightmare or something like that. But this one sounds really good. It sounds like kind of a doppelganger type story, where there's something paranormal or supernatural going on with the doppelganger. It sounds really good, but this is in like mint condition, and there aren't very many copies of it for sale on eBay, and the few that do exist are pretty expensive. So if you want to pay $36 for this, that's the cheapest you're going to find it at this time. But I think that this is another one that wasn't originally published by Point. I think it was published somewhere else by another publishing company and then republished by Point and kind of retroactively branded as a point horror novel. The copyright on this one is from the year 1981, and they did make a movie out of it. And again, the DVDs are very expensive as well. There is kind of a cheap one on eBay, and I'm probably going to pull the trigger on it today. And I might hold off a little bit on buying a beat up reading copy because this is one that I'm anxious to get to. I just don't have the heart to jeopardize the mint condition of this copy. All right. So, let's go ahead and jump into my R.L. Steins. Give me just a second to get situated, please, because I'm going to show you reprints of certain titles and alternative covers as well. And so I'm just going to need a moment to get organized. Okay. So the first thing that I guess I'd like to show you is I'll start with this, the Twisted title. So this is an older copy. It's got the original Point horror printing, so it says Point on the front and on the spine. It's never been read. This thing is in mint condition. I found it at a thrift store around the time that I began recollecting like Fear Street and began collecting Point horror. This title is from 1987. I believe it's a first edition because it says '01 next to printed in the USA. And if it says '01 on that copyright page, I'm under the impression that means it's a first printing. And so that's really cool that I have such a mint condition copy, possibly a first edition with this title. Then I have this reprint, and again, it's in like near mint condition. In fact, I would even call it mint condition, but it's a reprint. It's not one that I've read. I would really like to. This is also from, of course, it's from 1987. It doesn't have another year, so I don't know if one is like a British, printing, one's an American printing, because this one doesn't say Point on it. It just says Scholastic on the front cover and on the spine. But very cool, very proud to have that in my collection. Then let's get into the babysitters. Okay, so first of all, I have two different copies of the first babysitter. So I have the Point edition, which says Point on the cover. It says Scholastic on the bottom and Point on the spine. This is in a super collectible condition. I found this one at the closest thrift store to my apartment, and it's from 1989. Excuse me, sorry. And it also has an '01 next to the printed in the USA. So I believe this is a first edition, but I suspect that this might be the British printing, possibly. And then I have a reprint of it, and it would be in mint condition or near mint condition, except the stupid thrift store sticker peeled a little bit of paint off the front cover. It's negligible, still in very collectible condition as far as I'm concerned. But I want to see what the copyright page says about this one. So this one says 345/9. So I'm pretty certain that this is not considered a first edition. But it's very cool that I have this one as well. I enjoy the fact that I have both covers, because this one has a different colored spine, and it has the Scholastic blood drip, signifying that it's part of the Point horror series. Then I have, let me show you the next one. I have the Babysitter 2, and this does not say Point on the front or on the spine. This title came out in 1991, and It might be a first edition because it has a 1 next to printed in the USA. Then I have this bind up of the Babysitter 1 and 2, and it's a little bit more modern, and it's probably been read before. You know, there's a little bit of a crease on the corner. Very collectible condition. This was reprinted, compiled and reprinted in the year 2003. Wow, that's vintage, actually. So I think that vintage is anything 20 years old or older. Then I have the Babysitter 3, and it's got that spine, and the copyright is, let's see, 1993, and I believe because it has that '01 that it might be a first edition, but I could be wrong, okay? Then I got the Babysitter 4, and I haven't read it. The only person I know of who has read it is Cameron Chaney, and this copy, or this title, was printed or published and printed in 1995, and this one might be a first edition as well. I would call it near mint. The only flaw is this little, imperfection on the back. But I consider that negligible. I would still classify that as a near mint condition. Okay. Then I think that this might have been my second point horror book. I did not know about this in my childhood or teenage years. I didn't even really remember it from any like Cameron Chaney videos or Slime and Slasher videos when I first began recollecting Fear Street and point horror books. I went to a thrift store. My car had gotten stolen, and I actually Ubered to a thrift store because I was trying to hunt these things down. And this was the only thing I found that night. And I think that this was my second point horror book, if I remember correctly. But it's I Saw You That Night. Excellent looking cover. Absolutely love it. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I need to quit smoking. This one was from 1994, and it's possibly a first edition. Okay. So, then I have The Snowman. I attempted to read this a few years ago. It's in near mint condition, except the gosh forsaken thrift store sticker peeled a tad bit of paint off the front cover, as you can see. I heard that Cameron Chaney uses Goo Gone, and I know that my buddy Zach from Shady Side Library does Goo Gone as well. I need to get a bottle of Goo Gone and start working on that. I know we have it at work. I might be able to borrow a bottle and just work on safely and carefully removing my thrift store stickers from my book hauls. But this title was printed in February of 1991 and possibly a first edition as well. Great looking cover. I attempted to read that one a couple winters ago, but I just didn't finish it. Only because I've been slacking on reading by the time I got to my mid-30s. I think that the number of books that I've read can be counted on my fingers and toes. I used to go through a couple dozen books a year in my younger years. Then I have this copy of The Hitchhiker, and this copy has seen better days, but it's not too bad. I have this edition with the blood splatter on the side. You can definitely tell that this book has been read at least once. I have another copy of it somewhere around here with a different printing, but just for fun, let's look at the copyright on this. 1993, possibly a first edition. All right. Then this interesting. Okay. I'll just move on. I have this copy of Beach House Point Horror Edition. It has the Point logo and the Scholastic blood splatter on the spine. Not bad condition. You can tell that it's been read because there is a crease on the front cover near the corner of the spine. But otherwise, beautiful condition. Oh wow, the cover is offering resistance as I attempt to open it. This title is from 1992, possibly a first edition. Again, interesting looking cover. Summer's coming up. I know that I have a backup copy of that, so that might be a good summer read. Oh, here's my backup copy. Okay, and this one does not have the point logo on the front or on the spine. This is in mint condition. And let me see if this has a .01. It does. It has a .01. And wait, this one says 1990. What did the first one say? The one with the point logo on the cover and the spine? 1992. Wow. Is this a mint condition copy of the first edition? And is this a reprint from Interesting. Okay. Then I have, and I know I have more than one copy of this book. It's The Boyfriend. And it says Point Thriller on the spine. And it's in mint condition. The cover and the pages offer a little bit of resistance when I open it. No, this is a reprint from the year 2004. Okay, so definitely not a first edition. All right. Cool looking cover though. You have a kind of a shadow clad face in the background with this, white flower with a drop of blood on one of its petals. Very interesting looking. Then I have a Call Waiting. Okay, and again, really cool looking cover. Very nostalgic. It says Karen and Ethan forever with a heart written on paper. There's a lipstick. There's a little bit of blood splatter and a telephone with a cord. Reminds me of my childhood. Writing notes to girls and writing letters to my girlfriend and passing them out in the hallway like in middle school and high school. Very 90s looking cover. I love it. All right. And I think that I might have a few more R.L. Steins buried in here somewhere, but for now, let's get into my Caroline B. Coonies. All right, so this one is called The Stranger, and I believe I have a backup copy of it, but very nice looking cover. This cover has a little bit of wear and tear. I mean, not so much tear, but definitely wear. But still in what I would consider collectability condition. This title is from 1993. Also in my Caroline B. Cooney collection, I have Freeze Tag, and this was a gift from my boy Shadyside Library when we exchanged books. I sent him a package, he sent me a package. We made a video unboxing each other's package. Very cool. Very very cool. This is my collector's copy of The Perfume. I do have a reading copy, and I just love this cover. I love the embossed perfume bottle that's knocked over and blood is pouring out of it. It's embossed, the embossed logo. It's just such a great looking cover. And then I have this like mint condition copy of Twins. I do this book gets confused with Janice Harrell's twin sisters and twin terror duology a lot. Some people think that they have one or the other because they have the other in their collection. But I don't think that this is a first edition. This one has never been read, never been opened. It might be a first edition, I don't know. But it's from the year 1994. Okay. Then I have the Cheerleader series. Okay, so let me show you the OG covers. So I have this one. This is my collector's copy, and it's the Cheerleader, which I guess is a retelling of Faust, but instead of the devil, you have a powerful vampire, and instead of a dude named Faust, you have a female who, is basically a reimagining of the Faust character. Then there's the second book, which I believe is called Return of the Vampire, and I believe this is the second one. Not bad, the cover, has been through a little bit, but nothing too bad. Still collectible to me. This title was published and released in 1992, possibly a first edition. And then what I believe is book number 3 in the series, The Vampire's Promise. Okay. And so this one is from 1993. So yeah, this is the third cop. Wait, what? Return of the Vampire was 1992. Okay, yeah, so I think that the Return of the Vampire was book number 2, and The Vampire's Promise must be book number 3. So I have that. I'm just going to keep it moving. I also have a bind up of all 3, but I don't know. I don't have it in the stack, okay? But I have reprints of these books. And so the first one is The Vampire's Promise, Book 1, but it was retitled Deadly Offer. I bought this from a local bookstore on Black Friday of last year. And then there's book number 2, The Vampire's Promise, which was retitled Evil Returns. And these are all in mint condition. Then I have book 3, The Vampire's Promise was the original title, but the retitle is Fatal Bargain. And just out of curiosity, when were these printed? Because these are all in mint condition. These were reprinted in, I guess, 1993. Interesting. That can't be true. Unless these are like British copies or something. I thought that they were from the 2000s, in all honesty. All right. Then I have this one called Mummy, and I believe I found this one at a local thrift store. It's in near mint condition. Mummies aren't my favorite story. This is from June of 2000, the year 2000, so I don't really read a lot of stuff about mummies. I think I read like Curse of the Mummy's Tomb or something like that, the Goosebumps book, and I think that's about the only mummy book I've ever read in my life. Then this is the only book I have in the Losing Christina trilogy, The Fog. I don't have any of the other books in this trilogy at all, but this is a reprinting, I believe. Let me see. It's from 1989. It is a reprinting because the copyright page says originally titled The Fog, but this has been retitled as Losing Christina 1. All right. Then I have another copy of The Strangers. So I have 2 different printings. I'm not sure which one is the original. I suspect this is the original, and I suspect that this is a reedition. But that's pretty cool. Then I don't know if this counts as a point horror book. It might be a point thriller, but whatever. It's Caroline B. Cooney, so I'm featuring it in this video. And it's called Fatality, and it's got a really interesting looking cover. Just for kicks and giggles, we're going to go ahead and look at the copy. 2001. So then, and again, I think that this is more of an action suspense thriller. It's called The Terrorist. It's not exactly horror, but again, by Caroline B. Cooney. Mint condition. Never been opened. Never been read. This is from, it was copyrighted in 97, printed in 98. All right. I'm just going to start stacking these back up here. Okay. Then I have Driver's Ed by Caroline B. Cooney as well. And again, I think that it's the storyline is supposed to be like adjacent to I Know What You Did Last Summer, but it's not exactly a knockoff. It's kind of like a inspired by, and I think that this one is more like suspense thriller than horror, but it kind of leans towards horror a little bit. This is from 1996, Driver's Ed. Then I got Flight Number 116 is Down, and again, kind of an action suspense thriller. And I do see this book from time to time at thrift stores, and this is my only copy. I tend to pass up on buying, a backup or a reading copy, and I think it's because I'm not really interested in reading this one. I just wanted to add it to my Caroline B. Cooney collection. I want to read her horror stuff more than anything, even though I did read The Face on the Milk Carton in 7th grade, which was my introduction to Caroline B. Cooney. And then Emergency Room, again, not a point horror, but it was published by Point and Scholastic Young Adult Fiction. This is more of a medical suspense drama story. I just don't have any desire to read it. I just don't. I'm proud to own it. I'm proud to have it in my collection. And the same thing is true for this one called He Loves Me Not. And I know I've said in the past that if it's got her name on it, then it's worth reading because she's a great author. Okay, she's very beloved and respected in our corner of BookTube. But my time is limited, valuable, and precious. And if I sit down to read something, it's probably not going to be something like this. But and this one was printed by Scholastic. It doesn't say point anywhere on it. So I included it in this video, and this is from 1982. All right. Then, as far as I know, the last two titles that I have from Caroline B. Cooney, and oh my gosh, we're over an hour into it. I hope I haven't been dwelling on things for too long, but we got a little bit of ways to go. All right, so, put the coffee on, get your popcorn ready. A little too late, my apologies. All right, this is called Hush Little Baby by Caroline B. Cooney, and it's, it sounds really good. I think that this one might be a little bit more thriller slash horror. So, because if it's about, your baby getting stolen, that's pretty scary. I know that R.L. Stine said that his philosophy in writing is that when he writes horror for kids, it can't be believable. But when he writes horror for adults, it has to be believable. And so this sounds like a horror story that's pretty believable. So I would categorize this as a point horror because it was published by Scholastic. The premise does sound horrifying. So again, I would consider it a point horror book, and it's from 1999. All right, and then the last title that I have from Caroline B. Cooney, I believe, is going to be... Yes, okay. It's going to be Wanted. And this seems like it's more of a thriller that leans into horror. I haven't read it. It's from 1997, so I think that most people consider it a point horror. All right. Next, we'll get into my Sinclair Smiths. Okay, so let's start with Nightmare Hall. I only own 4 books in the Nightmare Hall series. So I do own book number 1, and it's called The Silent Scream. And it's my only one. the cover has seen better days. Look at that. That's a shame, but not too bad. I've seen worse. It's never been read though. The cover and the pages offer resistance when I try to open it. I guess this came out in 1993. Okay. And then the next book that I have in this series is book number 15, Truth or Die. Okay. And this is in excellent condition. All of these Nightmare Hall books I've found at local thrift stores. I don't remember them from my childhood. I don't remember seeing them at the Scholastic book fairs. I didn't even know about them until the Fear Street trilogy came out on Netflix, and I started to recollect those things, and I started to watch like Cameron Chaney and Slime and Slashers. That's how I found out about the Nightmare Hall series. But this is book number 16, Book of Horrors. This one sounds really good. These things are like barely in good enough condition for me to consider them collectible conditions. I would really love to complete this collection one day, but I don't know. So I have that, and then I have book number 25, Captives. And this is the last book that I have in the Nightmare Hall series. All right, but also by Diane Ho. Diane Ho. Wow, I'm unorganized. Okay, you know what? I said I was gonna. I said Sinclair Smith, then I went into Nightmare Hall by Diane Ho. I don't know where the rest of my Diane Ho books. They're in one of these stacks that you can't see on screen. I'm just gonna jump into my Sinclair Smiths. Okay, so I'm gonna show you these four titles first. Okay, so I have Amnesia, and this thing is in like near mint condition. There's a little tiny bit of creasing on the spine that's not showing very good on camera, but I can see it with my eyes. Never been read. Cover and pages offer resistance when I try to open it. This one is from 1996, Amnesia. Really cool looking cover. I love it. Sinclair Smith is one of the authors in this in the Point Horror series that has some of the best looking covers. This one is The Boy Next Door, and this sounds like a really good story. She shares this title with one of R.L. Stine's Fear Street books. There is a Boy Next Door Fear Street book. Then she has this one, Let Me Tell You How I Died, and I have a couple copies of this actually, but this one is in mint condition, so this one is my collector's copy. And just for fun, I'll go ahead and look at the copyright date, 1994, for Let Me Tell You How I Died, and this sounds really, really good. Yes, I'm so happy to finally have this one. I've been holding out for a long time, and I finally got it. Double date. I'm so glad to finally have this one. Never been read. It's my only copy, mint condition, so it's a collector's copy. I need to find a beat up one so I can read it. This one is from 1996. Okay, this is really cool. So I have two different versions of The Waitress. Okay, this is the Point horror book. And I don't remember if Cameron Chaney said that this might be the last Point horror book that was printed with the Point logo on the spine and the cover. I could be mistaking. I'm just remembering or trying to remember. But this one is from 1992. I might be mistaking about that. But yeah, so that's really cool. But then I own a French copy of this book, but in French the title is Chez Trixie. So in French, chez means place. So like if I wanted to invite you to my place, I would say like voulez-vous chez moi, or no, voulez-vous venir chez moi, and that's would you like to come to my place. And so chez Trixie, so like Trixie place. that does not translate to the waitress, is what I'm trying to say. And I haven't been studying French for like 4 months. I need to get back on it. And then I have multiple copies of Dream Date, but this one is in the most this one's in mint condition. So this is my collector's copy. But again, I have a French reprinting called Rêve Fatal. Okay, and like I know, like Rev means dream, and so Rêve Fatal, so like deadly dream, fatal dream is what it translates to. I wrote a song about some chick that I liked in my teens and early 20s, and I didn't know how to speak French back then. I still don't know how to speak French, but I know a lot more than I did back then. And I think it was called Je rêve de toi, which means I dream of you. I don't remember how the song goes anymore, but wait, is this a duplicate? Is this a did I, no, is it? Yeah, yeah. Okay, no. I just didn't put them back. Okay. I think that's it for my Sinclair Smiths. Now, like I said, I'm not quite as organized as I tried to be when I sat down to film this video. But I'm gonna show you these books. The only title that I have from this author is Dark Moon 2 Dreams of Revenge by Elizabeth Moore. This is in mint condition. This is another one that I've really been wanting to get my hands on ever since I, discovered Cameron Chaney's channel and started collecting Point Horror and found out about Point Horror. I saw that he had this in his collection and I was just enthralled with the cover and I really wanted it, and now I finally have it, so I'm very proud of that. But again, I need to find a beat up copy so I can read it because that's in mint condition and I don't want to mess it up. Then I have I believe this one and only title from Carmen Adams in the Point Horror series, and it's The Claw. And I think this is the British cover, and it's so beat up. Oh my gosh. I was so mad because I bought this book on eBay, and they just had a generic stock photo, but they said it was in good condition or very good condition. And when I got it in the mail, this was the condition that they sent it to me in. And I was like, wait, I'm an eBay seller too. I would never list this copy. I would never resell this copy and call it good or very good. I was very disappointed. I think it was like Thrift Books. It was one of those really big stores that we've all bought books from. So I was really disappointed. But I have another edition that's in near mint condition, and so this is kind of my collector's copy, and this is my reading copy. So I'm very happy about that, and I believe this is the only point horror book that Carmen Adams has written. She has a few other books. One of them is called The Band, which is kind of a vampiric story, and I have a collector's copy in mint condition of that book, and then I have a really beat up reader's copy, and I actually have read that book, and I've been meaning to do a book review of it on YouTube. I just haven't, but I haven't read The Claw, but I did read The Band. In the future there will be a book review for The Band. All right, then I'm just gonna kill this stack real quick. I don't even know what's in it really. So this is okay, just to get these out of the way, I'll show you. I have two titles from this author. Her name is Cheryl Jordan, and I believe this is actually a point horror book, and it's called The Juniper Game. And it's kind of a fatal attraction type story where someone becomes infatuated, kind of lust at first sight type of story, and then the person, the object of their affection is psychopathic. But this one sounds like it has a supernatural twist. So if you've read seen the movie Fatal Attraction, or if you read the first book in the Fear Street series, The New Girl, it's basically that story, but with a supernatural paranormal twist. And this is, I believe, a point horror book, not science fiction or anything like that. This is in mint condition, so I won't be reading it, even though I want to. And this is from 1991. Now, I only have one other title from this author, Cheryl Jordan, and this one isn't exactly horror. It was published by Point. It's a Point Scholastic Young Adult Fiction title, and it's called Winter of Fire. And I think it's kind of a sci-fi fantasy with horror leanings. I think that's like the appropriate genre. And yeah, so this is the only other title that I have from this author. And I found this one at a local thrift store within the last year or two. And this is in like super, super good condition. It's from 1992 as well. So unless I can find a beat up copy, I'm not going to be reading it. I found it. Remember that hardcover that I had of Lure of Darkness? Remember I showed you this Lure of Darkness? It's kind of like a werewolf love story or whatever. And it might not have originally been published by Point, but then republished and rebranded as a point horror. Here's the Point one. Okay, it says Point right there on the cover, Lure of the Dark. It's got, kind of an ominous, mysteriously compelling cover of a girl's face, covered in shadow on the front cover. This thing is in rough condition. I found it at a local thrift store. So this is, it used to be owned by some school library upstate from me. Oh man, this thing is beat up. If I read it one time, it's going to fall apart. So when I do eventually read it, I'm going to have to read that hardback copy. All right, then I have this one, and I don't know if it's horror. It might lean a tad bit into horror, but it's called The Only Alien on the Planet by Kristen D. Randall. And I think it might be more sci-fi, but with horror leanings. And this is in mint condition, never been read. And it's from 1995. I don't know if that's considered a point horror or not. All right, then these books, I think that if they had come out sooner, they would have been considered part of the point horror series. But this is the first book in the series, and it's called Premonitions by Jude Watson. It wasn't published by Point, but it is a Scholastic publishing, so I featured it in this video. And then I don't know if this is book number 2 or a different number within the series. Let me look at the bibliography page real quick. There is no bibliography page, so I have no idea. But it's from 2005, and this one is called Disappearance, a Premonitions Mystery. So I think that these are like... I know that Premonitions, based on the synopsis, it has some Final Destination vibes. And then I guess Disappearance is a continuation of the story. Here's another one where I only have one title from the author. I told you I wasn't quite as organized as I wished I was. The Surfer by Linda Cargill. Mint condition copy, very rare, hard to find. I think that there's a copy going right now for $50 on eBay. So unless you're willing to pay that high price of a book, you might not ever get this one unless you get really lucky and find it out in the wild. Then I have two different copies of 13. Okay. And this is a compilation of short stories. And you have the point horror usual suspects. You got D.E. Atkins, A. Bates, Caroline B. Cooney, Carol Ellis, Diane Ho, Lyle Litke, Sinclair Smith, J.B. Stamper, okay, etc. Okay, neither one of these copies is in like near mint condition. I think they're in like acceptable to very good condition. Not this one. This one's in acceptable condition, but the spine is different on them. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but the title is 13, and one of them has the title in red, the other one has the title in white. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but I think that I think this is my reading copy. Yeah. All right. Wow, I still have two more stacks. I think that we're gonna get into my Carol Ellis's. All right. Yeah, we're gonna knock out my Carol Ellis's. There's Carol Ellis has actually, a pretty decent stack, and I think I have them all. So I have Silent Witness. This is my collector's copy. Really compelling cover, though. I mean, a leather glove-clad hand holding a dagger, I guess, and then this like horrified-looking girl on the cover. I mean, it just sounds really good. And then The Stalker, again, another great cover. I just love it. Really good. This is my collector's copy. In fact, no, I have I have a reading copy. This is from 1996, The Stalker. And then I have The Body, and I think this is the British cover. I don't have the American cover with the Scholastic logo and blood splatter on the spine. But this one's cool too. I would just want to find the copyright page. This is from 1995. Okay, first published in the U.S. By Scholastic in 95, and then first published in the U.K. by Scholastic in 1996. So this is the British copy, and it's the only copy that I have. Then The Window, which is kind of like a Disturbia type storyline. So, and what year is this? This is 1992. And then Camp Fear. This one I've found out in the wild a couple of times. This one's in mint condition, so this one is my reading copy, or I'm sorry, my collector's copy. Very scary looking cover. I hate snakes. And to have one in a bed, gives me the heebie-jeebies. All right, then I have The Stepdaughter. And oh my gosh, this is one that I acquired recently, and I'm just very ecstatic to have it in my collection. It's my only copy. It's in mint condition, so it's a collector's copy. And then this one just sounds so good, and it gives, the cover gives me some Whisper of Death vibes. I really like the cover on this. I bet you it's a very different story, but the cover, has similarities. And I have a reading copy of this as well, but this is my collector's copy, and this is from 1989. Okay. And then I think that's it for my Carol Ellis's. I think that's all the point horror Carol Ellis's, actually. And then I have two from Lyle Litke. I have The Prom Dress. Oh my God, guys, I'm mistaking. I've had this book for years before the Fear Street trilogy. I actually found it at this Goodwill outlet clearance center that we have here in town. You might even have one in your city, but you go there, you just dig through these bins. You find whatever you find. You never know what's going to be in there. You pay by the pound. It's the cheapest thrift store you can imagine. I go there and I buy things and I sell them on eBay and Poshmark and stuff like that. And I found this book and there, and I was like, oh wow, this is like something that would have been that they would have had at the Scholastic Book Fair when I was a kid. But when I was a kid, the only things that I really bought from the Scholastic Book Fair were typically R.L. Stine books. And this is made me want to start doing the, like, Cameron Chaney thing before the Fear Street trilogy. This was my first point horror book that wasn't R.L. Stine or Christopher Pike. And it was years before the Netflix trilogy of Fear Street. Like, wow. I've never read it, but I do have a backup reading copy. And the author is Lyle Litkey. This is from the 80s, I think. Yeah, 1989. The girl in here looks more 80s than she does 90s. Wow. Okay, very cool. Then I have one more title, The Watcher by Lyle Litkey, and this is one that I've never found out in the wild. I had to order it on eBay, but it feels good to finally have this one in my collection, and I think that might be it for Lyle Litkey books. I'm not sure. All right, now it looks like we're going to get into my D.E. Atkins and A. Bates books. So let me just grab all the D.E. Atkins. Okay, yeah, these are all my D.E. Atkins. So this is a British printing of The Cemetery. I don't have the American edition, and it's called The Cemetery, and it seems like it's kind of the storyline is kind of a I Know What You Did Last Summer type of storyline. Let's see. The first edition was published by Scholastic in 1992, and then this edition was published in 1993. I think that this is the British copy though, and it's in near mint condition, so I won't be reading it, but hopefully I can find a reading copy. And this one, oh my gosh, I thought I was never gonna have it. It's called The Bride, and this one is pretty rare, and it goes for big bucks on eBay. There's an American edition and there's a British edition. This is the American edition. I texted Shady Side Library a photo of it to show him, like, bro, I finally have it. And he was like, oh, wow, I don't have that one. And then 5 minutes later, he texts me back and said, oh, never mind, I do. And then he texts me again a minute later. Oh, looks like I have the British copy too. Like, in my face. All right. Then I have Sister Dearest. This is like the most common point horror book ever. I always find this out in the wild. Always. I have like 10 copies of this, but this one's in mint condition, so it's my collector's edition. And this one, Mirror Mirror, I think it's pretty rare. Great looking cover, foiled, embossed cover. Just great looking cover. This is in mint condition. This is my collector's copy. And I have a reader's copy that used to be owned by a public library, and it has a protective adhesive cover on it. And so that's my reader's copy. So very cool that I have that one in my collection. And then Secret Santa. This one is pretty rare and goes for some pretty big bucks on eBay too, which is where I got this from. But I'm super stoked to have this one in the collection as well. Excuse me. And before we get into my A. Bates books, again, I told you I'm not as organized as I wish I was. I have 2 titles from this author. This is called Please Do Not Touch, a collection of stories by Judith Gorog. And I found this very recently. I didn't even know about it, but I think I actually did see this one in Cameron Chaney's Point Horror Collection video, and that video is already a few years old. think that video is already like 4 years old or something. So Cameron Chaney might have it by now. I'm sure his collection has grown since he filmed that video. But yeah, this is a collection of short stories. What year is it from again? And I don't know if they're compiled by Judith Gorog or if she wrote them. But this was published in 1993, and it sounds like she's the author of all these stories, actually. Then I have one more collection of stories in the Point Horror series, published from Judith Gorog, and it's called When Nobody's Home, 15 Babysitting Tales of Terror. And you guys know how much I love horror mixed with babysitters, okay? Babysitters and horror go hand to hand like peanut butter and jelly, okay? So this is the title or the cover. And again, I'm not going to be reading these books because they're both in such, good condition. I just don't have the heart to mess that up. All right, now we'll get into my A. Bates books, and I think I have them all. I'm not entirely sure. The first one that I have is Crazy for You, and I actually have two copies of this, but they're both the British copy. I don't have the American cover, but this one's like in mint condition, so I'm not going to read it, even though I really want to, and I love the cover of it. Let's look at the copyright page real quick. The American edition came out in 96, and this British edition came out in 97. Very happy to have that one. Then I have The Dead Game, and I do have the British copy of this one as well. And I also have the American copy, and I like both covers. I really like how, the American cover looks, and I really like the use of creepy greens on the cover of the British one. Then I have a Mother's Helper, and this is another one that is like super, super common. I've found it in the wild countless times. This one is and I have again, probably 5 to 10 copies of it lying around here, but this one's in mint condition, so it's my collector's copy. And then I have Party Line, which is one of my favorite covers. Very nostalgic looking cover. But this is my only copy, and it's in mint condition. Never been read, never been opened. Let's see. This is from 1989. Okay, very, very cool. And then I have Final Exam, and I swear they turned this into a movie. I could be wrong. If they didn't turn it into a movie, they ripped it off and made it into a movie. I saw it on Netflix years ago. I think it was called Deadly Detention or something. Or maybe there's another young adult book called Deadly Detention, and that's the book that they turned into the Netflix movie that I saw years ago. But what's really freaky about this book is that it says Columbine High. That's pretty freaky. And that happened a few years before the Columbine incident. I think the Columbine happened in 98, 99. This book was copyrighted in 1990, so that's, pretty freaky in itself. All right. So that's it for my A. Bates. I have one more stack to get to. Let's go with my Rosemary Wells books. Okay, so I have 3 from Rosemary Wells. This one I'm not so sure is horror. This is in mint condition. It's called Through the Hidden Door. And I found another more beat up copy at a thrift store, and I didn't buy it, and I wish I did, because back then I wasn't, doing collector's copies and reading copies, and I really regret not buying it. But this one is in mint condition, and it sounds like it's fantasy with some horror leanings, and it's from 1987, and it does say point fiction on the spine, so I included it in this video. And then just a few months ago, I found this one, The Man in the Woods. And I believe that this was one of those books that was printed or published by someone else and then retroactively printed as a point horror book. This is from 1984. I think that this is a first, Scholastic Point printing, but this is not was not originally published by Point or Scholastic. And I found this at a local thrift store. And you can see that the thrift store sticker kind of stole some of the paint off the cover, but the spine is perfectly healthy and the cover isn't in otherwise bad condition. And I do get resistance when I try to open the cover and open the pages, so very glad that I found that in recent months. And then just the other day, I found this one at the thrift store closest to my apartment. And it's called When No One Was Looking by Rosemary Wells. And this is, pretty cool. I guess it's about a tennis star and a murder mystery. And so it's kind of like mystery horror. I'm really glad that I found this. This is from it was copyrighted in 1980, and then the first Scholastic printing was from 91. So another book that was retroactively published and printed as part of the Point Horror series. Then I have two titles from Peter Larangis. This one is called Driver's Dead. And it sounds very similar to Caroline B. Cooney's Driver's Ed. So this is cool. I think I have two copies of this as well now. So I'm very happy about that. This is a title that I didn't have in my first Point Horror Collection video. And then I have the yearbook, and I have multiple copies of this as well by now. This is another one that I did not have in my first Point Horror Collection video. And this is my collector's copy. So, and I believe these are the only two Peter Larangis Point Horrors, if I'm not mistaken. But then now we can get into my Diane Ho's. So I already showed you my Nightmare Hall books, but I have The Accident, and this is a mint condition copy, so it's my collector's. But I have a reading copy that's not in quite as good condition, and I believe that I obtained that one from Shadyside Library, either as a gift or an ironically coincidental eBay purchase, but my other copy comes from Shadyside Library. Then I have The Train, and oh my gosh, I've been wanting this one for the longest time. I've acquired this one in recent months. I got it online. It's in mint condition. I found out about this one from Cameron Chaney's Point Horror Collection video from a few years back, and I'm just super stoked to finally have it in my collection. Then I have The Fever, which I was lucky enough to find out in the wild. I've had kept my eyes open for this title for a long time because I like the cover. And I know that Diane Ho wrote like a medical drama series, and I've seen those titles at thrift stores before, and I regret not picking them up because that's not really something that I'd choose to read on my own. But this is like a horror book, so I'm super glad that I finally have this one. Then I have Prom Date, and I've had a copy of Prom Date in my collection for a long time. I found it at the closest thrift store to my apartment a few years back, but this one is in mint condition. So this is my collector's copy, and then the copy that I found out in the wild a few years back, that's my reader's copy. All right, I have two more. I have Fun House, and this one's in near mint condition. One of the coolest, funnest looking covers in the Point Horror series. It's got some Carnival Circus vibes. Great title, Fun House. Love the font of the title. And then I have The Invitation, and this sounds really, really good. based on the synopsis on back, it sounds like it's actually a super similar storyline to Halloween Party, book number 8 in the Fear Street series. It sounds like it's got like a very similar storyline. So here are my JB Stampers, and I believe these are the only JB Stamper point horror books that are. Okay, so you got Tales for the Midnight Hour, okay, and this was another title that was retroactively published and printed to be part of the Point Horror series, but this one is actually from the 70s. I found it at a local thrift store. This thing is beat up, but it's the only time I've ever found a copy of the first printing. Some girl named Tara wrote her name in it in marker. This book has definitely seen better days. And so I'm actually, super stoked that I have this one in my collection as well. But then there's more Tales for the Midnight Hour. And then there's even more Tales from the Midnight Hour. Then I'm going to show you these three because these should have been in my... these should have been in the part where I showed you the books that I only had one copy or one title from a certain author. This one is called The Tricksters by Margaret Mahay. I don't know how to pronounce that name. But this is the only point horror book that I've ever, found from her. And I don't know if she has any more titles in the Point series at all. But I do have a vintage Scholastic Apple paperback book that she wrote, and it was middle grade horror. And this sounds really, really good. I just haven't read it yet. But I never would have heard of that one had I not found it at a local thrift store. Then I finally have a copy of The Rain Ghost. I first found out about this book from Cameron Chaney's Point Horror Collection video, and he talked about how it's not his favorite cover because, the cover is just so awkward. Like that ghost graphic is so bad, and the model on the cover, his pose is so weird and awkward and strange. So I see what Cameron Chaney is saying, but the author of The Rain Ghost is Gary Kilworth, and this is another one that I obtained from Shady Side Library. This was in that gift package that he sent me where I unboxed it on video. So Shady Side Library, Zach, bro, thank you very much. You rock. And then Gary Kilworth has a story in this one, The Cat Dogs. Now, I found this at a local thrift store, or no, a local used bookstore about a year ago. And I had never heard of it before. And I think that when I did my book haul video that time, I said, oh, well, this is a rare one. Even Cameron Chaney doesn't have it. Yes, he does. It was in his Point Horror Collection video from a long time ago. He beat me to it. He had it. But I have it now, so... and I have for maybe a year or two. I don't remember if it was last year or the summer before that. I don't remember, but I have it too, so that's awesome. And Gary Kilworth does have a story in that book. Then I have two from Margaret Buffy, and it's The Haunting of Frances Rain, and it's kind of a similar story to like say Cheese and Die. She finds these glasses that help her see ghosts and help her see premonitions and everything. It sounds really, really good. And then she has this book called The Warnings, and it's a very similar story, very similar concept. This is my collector's copy. I did buy a beat up copy off of eBay so I could have a reader's copy because I really want to read these books. And then I have 3 point horror books from Janice Harrell. Janice Harrell has written other titles, but they weren't all published by Point or Scholastic. So I have The Vampire's Love Blood Curse, Book 1. And it's in near mint condition. It's in like mint condition, except for a thrift store sticker kind of stole a little bit of paint off the spine. But I guess that's negligible. It's just disheartening. And then I have book 2 in that series, Vampire's Love Blood Spell. And these are great looking covers. So, I'm sure they're vampire romance, but I love vampires so much. And then, unfortunately, I believe this is the only one that I have. I think that there's 3, and I only have volume 1, and it's the Secret Diaries. And I need to get the other ones. And I have other Janice Harrell books like, Twin Sisters and Twin Terror. I just don't, but they just weren't published by Point or Scholastic. But I know that Janice Harrell does have other books in the Point Horror series or that were published by Scholastic that we consider Point Horror books. I need to get my hands on those. So I don't have all the Point Horror books, but I think I have a very respectable collection. I'm very proud of my Point collection and the fact that I have some backup copies and the fact that I have some really rare expensive titles. Yeah, this was a very fun video for me to make. I'm sorry it went on for so long, but I hope that you found it entertaining. I know that there is an audience, a very niche audience for this sort of thing. And to those of you who fit into that niche, I really hope you had as much fun as I did. Thank you for watching. Horns up. Peace out.